Hello, hello, and welcome to today's podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about our recent adventure to Antarctica to finish off a goal I never knew
existed.
Yes, or knew I had a desire to do.
Right. So yeah, everybody's got goals in life. You know, goals change, ideas change. So it's certainly something where, you know, even our bodies change, making it more difficult to achieve the goals too. So, but we hope to maybe explain, you know, what all transpired and maybe what else maybe is in store, or maybe what goals you might have too, potentially for future endurance events.
Yes. So we went to Antarctica in March of 2026, specifically to complete a half marathon so that I could complete a half marathon on all 7 continents.
Right. And, you know, we'll get into it a little more in detail, but it was not really something on your radar, but as time went and, you know, events, you kept stacking up events. It's like, okay, well, I've already got this continent. I've already got that continent. You know, I've done this, I've done that. Why not do a little bit more and finish up the 7 continents? So it's worked out pretty nicely.
Yes. So it really started because Mark was already on this journey when he and I met. So that's kind of where it started, but we'll get into what it looks like. So to get to Antarctica, you find your way to Ushuaia, Argentina, and you get on a boat and an expedition cruise ship.
So first flight was from the States down to Argentina, Buenos Aires. Then the second flight was from Buenos Aires down to Ushuaia, which is the southernmost city in the world. And that's what their boast is. That's the end of the world is what they call it down there.
Fin de mundo.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun. And then comes the fun, which is about a 2 to 3, close to 3, because you include the evening, the nighttime, but it's about a 3-hour boat ride.
No, 3 day. Two
3
days.
Yes, 3
2 days of a boat ride across the Drake Passage.
But yeah, about a 3-day event to get across the Drake Passage down to the continent of Antarctica. And the waters there, because it's a circumferential ocean, there's no landmass to stop the wind and the waves. So the waves can be very significant down there. So it's the event of the travel as trying to get across this thing and still be able to have your sea legs, you know, your legs to be able to actually run the next day after you get there. So it's kind of fun.
Yes. And then on the way out, we'll just talk about the Drake Passage because that is kind of an exciting piece of the journey. It wasn't terrible on the way out. We wore scopolamine patches to help with the nausea and dizziness.
There were individuals that got sick, yes, but you could tolerate it.
And they would consider our time out Drake Lake because we didn't have really crazy seas.
Right.
On the way home was another story.
Yeah,
so
I think we had 6 to 9 foot swells going down there. And then on the way back for one day, we had over 22 foot swells. So it was pretty significant rocking to the point where it was very difficult to stand up on that ship. So
yes, quite an experience. So when you get to Antarctica for the race, you are on your ship and they take you via Zodiacs, these little boats from the ship to the shore. And something that it was really interesting, and I think a lot of people who saw pictures were like, you're in Antarctica? Because there wasn't really a lot of snow where we actually ran.
Yeah.
It sleeted and it snowed the day of the race, but the terrain was really gravel, mud.
A lot of gravel and mud, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a sloppy race. But it's because it's the end of the summer. So there was not, you know, all the stuff had been melted. And this is at St. George Island. So it's the, I don't know, I guess you could call it the northernmost portion of Antarctica. I don't know if that's for sure, but it's very far north.
Is it St. George or King George Island?
King George. I think you're right. I'm saying all kinds of things wrong. So King George Island. So, but that island is quite a ways up from, it's a peninsula that jets up above Antarctica. So
you're running along different research stations. We started at the Russian research station, went through the Chilean research station, and our race, because of the weather that we were having, only went to the Chinese research station. The voyage that went before us actually did the other side that was also included the Uruguay
correct
research station. So we did our lap 3 times for the half marathon, from the Russian station to the Chinese station, back 3 times.
Yeah. And the weather was very cooperative that day, actually. So as weather can be.
Yes.
But
we had a little sleet.
It was around 30s.
We had a little snow.
Yeah.
We had some sunshine, lots of wind. The weather cooperated.
Right. Yeah. So that worked out very nicely. 10 years ago, when I ran my full marathon, was not that cooperative, actually. So they had to actually call the race. There was a few people that actually could not finish because we had to get off the island to get back to the ship safely. So, but you never know what Antarctica weather will be like. But it's not as bad as you think. I think that a lot of people have in their mind that you're running on snow and ice and all this business, which is true in some circumstances, but not really so much there because of the time of the year that we actually do that. So,
yeah, the course was pretty hilly, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And someone didn't remember that.
Which is quite interesting. You think you'd be on some flat terrain down there, but it is not that way. It is supposed to be the driest, average, highest elevation for a continent too, actually down there. So, which is quite interesting. You wouldn't think that, but the most of the terrain is 4,000 to 6,000 miles, or 4,000 to 6,000 feet, I think was what it was. So, but there's a lot of hills.
Yes. And some gravel that was different to run on, kind of like running on sand a little bit. But anyway, overall, the race went very well. And we took our time. We took lots of pictures, videos. There were penguins.
Lots of penguins.
It was...
No polar bears. Polar bears are only in the north. This is the south. So it's just that's another question we get a lot of times. But just penguins down there. So there was a lot of wildlife and seals. Even at the point where we boarded the boats, there was a lot of seals in that area too.
So this race is a little bit different for us because typically Mark is running a full marathon and I am completing a half marathon. And this time we did it together, which was kind of a question. We were trying to decide, do we do this together? Does Mark do his own race and just get it done? But he stuck with me and we did walking. This was your continent
and your race, and we documented it.
So. Yes, we did it together. So our finish line was very nice. We did it together and it was a really, really good experience.
And I think, just keep it in mind with the hills and all there too, is what has happened for myself too 10 years ago, but it takes longer to complete that. So, that was about an extra 30 minutes on average, I think, for you to complete this race compared to what you typically do. So, and it's about the right. It took me about 45 minutes to an hour longer to do it back 10 years ago for the full.
Yeah.
So
we already talked a little bit about how this goal started, and essentially I didn't really even know that I wanted to take on this goal until I had completed a half marathon on all the other continents.
Right.
So it really wasn't on my radar until it was the last one. And then when it's the last one, you're like, well, why not?
Yeah, might as well put that away. But yeah, it really kind of going back to the very beginning of how your events really started back in Africa for you, actually. So
sure. And we've talked about this before. But for those of you that don't know the story, Mark invited me to go with him to Madagascar for his Africa full marathon. And I said, sure, I'll go. And the night before, he signed me up for the half, which I had done one half marathon previously.
But I went up to get my bib, up to the registration table to pick up my bib, and she stayed back, back in the end of the crowd and was hanging out there. And I went up to get it, and I saw that there were people that could register. You could register that day if you wanted to run the race. It wasn't a large race. It was a small race. And so it's like, I didn't even ask her. I just signed her up, and I went back, and here's your bib.
And I said, okay, well, I guess I can at least walk it. I know I can walk it.
Right.
And that's what I did. So that was kind of where the whole thing started. And so when at that race, Mark still had left Oceania, which is the Australia, New Zealand area, and South America were the two that he had left to finish his goal of doing all 7 continents. And so that was just kind of the jumping off place for me, but I still didn't really have it on my radar. So
right. But, it's something to remember, just to kind of keep in mind that, as we get older, your goals change. And, I think it's certainly something that needs to be said, that as we get older, as we age, we need to have goals. It's not that we want to just wither away. We want to have goals to where we can continue to strive and build and improve and be functional. And I think that's certainly something that helps us continue to keep that drive to be active, is to have the goals. And so, it's probably something that we hope that individuals will, out of this podcast, will get the idea that if they can change their goals, then maybe they can start to change some other parts of their life for the good.
Yeah. And really, I think there is a narrative or I don't even know. I think the idea of the golden years and what they look like, they can look a lot different than what some people imagine them to be. So,
right. Just like what, we imagined Antarctica, what it would be like to run. Well, it really wasn't that big of a deal. Truthfully, it was worked out pretty easy. The hard part was just getting there, or deciding to get there. Of course, there's the financial part of that too. It's not cheap to get down there, but these types of things, you just have to set your mind to it.
And I think the other thing to remember is that your health is kind of the foundation of adventure as you age, because what your health will allow you to do is really what opens the door to the possibilities of the adventures that you can have.
Right. Yeah, but goals, I mean, they just provide a foundation and a reason to just optimize your health and your life so that you can be able to do that. Okay, well, is my goal to live in a wheelchair when I get older? Is my goal to take care of my parents or my kids, or to play with the grandkids, travel? What is your goal? And you have to train during your life for those goals, essentially.
For sure. And I think one thing that I am always surprised by is that our bodies will surprise us. Honestly, we went and did that marathon, and we trained more for this race. Mark trains all the time. I do not train like most people think you would train for these types of events. I trained more for this event than I have trained for other events that we've done in the past.
Right. And the goal for this was to train so that we could actually be strong enough to produce body heat.
Right.
So that you can't walk in the cold for as long as you can actually move faster. So you're going to generate that heat. So that was the whole goal. I didn't exactly tell you about all the hills, but
right.
But certainly, the training part of that, like I say, the body can surprise you and you can push it through. Your mind will hold you back. So if you have the right mindset, your body is going to be able to perform a lot of the functions.
And one thing that was surprising to me, and I think we have some tools in our pocket that help this, but honestly, I felt pretty good after that race.
Right.
I mean, that day of the race, I could tell going up and down stairs that I had run a race that day, but overall recovery went pretty smooth.
Went very well. Yeah. Your body had conditioned itself and adapted, so it was able to recover faster. So it worked out very nicely for you.
The other thing that I've noticed about doing these types of events is that the discomfort is temporary, and I have become more comfortable being uncomfortable. early on in our relationship, there were other races. I remember Little Rock was one that I was signed up to do the half, and I did not do it because it was raining that day.
Right. And of course, what happened? It stopped raining right at the start of the race. So it's like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wish you'd have done it, but that's okay.
I know. But that is one of those things that really changed for me. I have gotten a lot better at being okay.
Being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it too. A lot of people, when it gets cold, when it gets dark in the winter, it's not a fun time to run or do these types of activities, especially outside. A lot of folks resort to the treadmills, but if you can layer up and get out there, it's actually not as bad. It's what your mind thinks it's going to be like, and you can prove it wrong. So, but you know, the other thing about these challenges is they help deepen the connections too. There's a lot of, not only between ourselves, you know, being able to compete something like this, which was just a lot of, I really enjoyed, you know, running and exercise and training with her, but it really deepens connections for the people that actually you meet there during those events. We've met a lot of good lifelong friends by doing these types of events, because these are people that are like-minded. And so it's always fun too to see, well, where have they gone? What have they done? You know, type of things. Or what would you suggest?
Yes, that is how we find the next thing quite often, is by talking to people who are at a race that we're at and finding out what other things that they have done that sound fun to us.
And there's also a misconception that a lot of folks think that the people that do these types of things are just elite athletes. You know, there's a very few limited amount of people that can actually do these things. Yes, but there are individuals down that do these types of things that you kind of sit back and be a little judgmental and say, boy, it's going to hurt. You're going to have a lot of trouble. You're going to have a lot of problems with this. But yet they do hard things. They have the mindset, and they get through it, and they do it. And there's an older couple that I saw that I was surprised that, but they did a great job. They did it and completed their event down there.
Not only that, but they were in Antarctica with us in March. They were going to Patagonia in October, and they also had Madagascar on their list, like within another couple of months. So it is very easy for us to say, oh, I can't do that. I could never.
Right.
But it's good to know that you.
And, you know, like a lot of the things I always talk about is that the training is hard. The training is uncomfortable. The training is not fun for some people to do these things. But when you train, you get through the discomfort. And then when you get to the event, it's not as bad. I would rather have more discomfort trying to get to the stage of adaptation where we can do the events. And then when you do the event, you don't have to suffer. That's the whole point. It's like, I don't want to have to suffer on this thing for 26 miles or 13 miles, whatever it is. So, but what we can do now is kind of prepare ourselves for that.
And it's honestly, for me, it's a lot easier to train or keep moving because I'm working towards something. And ultimately, I'm not doing these things so that I can retire and live in a nursing home.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any right now. I don't have any intentions of slowing down, and it's enjoyable. And, you know, the thing about these types of events, we got to see some amazing surroundings and the terrain and the wildlife and the whales and the seals and penguins. You know, these types of things, there's things you can't see this in a zoo. When you see it in nature, it's a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also gives us a certain amount of freedom, you know, with our health, being in shape, being able to perform these activities gives you a lot more freedom to go do things. You know, there have been individuals, whether you're doing hikes or whether you're doing walks or events or you're walking around trying to keep up with your grandkids. If you're able to get yourself to the point where you can, you know, physically do these things, you're going to have a lot more freedom. You know, when you get to the end of that trail and you see that beautiful waterfall, it's too far away. Well, you can do it. And so you can get more up close and personal and get those special moments.
So just a couple of questions to put out there for you to ponder. What's the thing that you've been telling yourself you're too old for, or too out of shape for, or too busy for?
Right.
That's another really good.
Yeah, everybody's busy. And unfortunately, it's sometimes it's difficult to find the training time, whether you've got kids or whether you've got a job or whether you travel. It's difficult.
Or have all three.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, but what would you like to do? What would you like to know, and how would you be able to attempt these things if your body could handle it? What would you like to do?
If you knew that your body could handle it, what would you do that just isn't on your radar right now because you think it's out of reach?
Yeah. So, and another thing that I kind of want to emphasize is that there was a lot of different ranges of ages too down there. And, I read something about where, age is not a cage. I think that's a great analogy, that, don't let age hold you back from doing the things that you want to do. Prepare yourself for it. So that includes making yourself healthy now and put in the activities and the work to be able to accomplish those things so that you can go have that freedom.
Mm-hmm. And I think another thing that was interesting is the younger generation that was actually on this trip. And the reason that is surprising is because it is something you have to save for. Like, you're not just going to decide a month before this event. I mean, first of all, it sells out and a lot of people are on a wait list for multiple years, but it's an investment. This is an investment for yourself. So seeing so many young people, it was really neat that they had made the choice to make that investment in not only their health, but their adventure, Right.
But it's certainly something that is a learning experience. But, once you do these things, it's like, well, that was not too hard. What's the next thing we can do? Now, what can we do? So it's always about planning, and we're always trying to plan. And that's where we're having the goals. A lot of people are motivated to do the training when they have a goal that they have to have in mind. They have to reach this time and this goal. But, it's so much easier to stay in shape and then sign up for things when you see something pop up. I kind of like that.
Yes, you do.
So anyway, I don't know if I have anything else.
I think that pretty much wraps up our journey, but certainly always welcome to open to answering questions. If you have them, reach out on social media or.
But just keep in mind, what's your Antarctica? What do you want to do? So we hope you have a healthy day.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next adventure.